Hello, everyone. This is Defacto Review with me, Jarrell Tampadarja. This week, we cover two topics. One is about the current hot discussions at the Parliament, whether VAT will be changed or not. Second issue is about low quality of medicine and their high prices. These are two topics we'd like to cover this week because these two topics caused most attention of the public this week. Let's start the first one, VAT. What is VAT? VAT is a consumption tax on goods and services. That tax is levied at each stage of supply chain value. So basically, they estimate whatever you have created as new value. And in case of Mongolia, 10% is charged. In Japan, where I am doing this program now, for example, they started VAT with 3% in 1989, and it became 5% in 1997, and 8% in 2014. Even such a country like Japan, they started to have this VAT from very low level, 3%. Then in Mongolia, it had started 10%, where the tax culture is different. Taxation culture is different. So the matter became very strong now during the process of discussions of Mongolian state budget. The speaker suddenly suggested to return 50% of the VAT tax collected from customers instead of 20% currently practiced. This year, Mongolia is discussing budget with income 27 trillion MNT, which is substantially higher than last year. And this 30% of the Mongolian state budget revenue is coming from this VAT tax, 6.4 trillion MNT. So if 20% of them is returned, then 410 billion MNT is planned actually in the draft budget. But since the speaker is suggesting 50% of them is to be returned, then it will be required 600 billion MNT for the next year just to return this VAT, which is of course unacceptable by the Minister of Finance, who is trying to meet the ends with revenue and expenses of the budget. And the citizens immediately supported the idea. And recently the parliament had created so-called D-Parliament, where on application you can suggest certain issues to be discussed. In particular, if 100,000 people support a topic will be certainly discussed according to the new regulations at the parliament within certain days. Looks like now that whether they want or not, they're going to discuss that issue somehow. The VAT issue, whether returning of the VAT to be 50% or 20% as it is now. So at least we have that 107,000 Mongolians have suggested that we must discuss that. Interestingly, the tax issue is always political issue. In fact, it's political tax. And this tax issue is, since the main issue of the ruling party, this tax issue was supposedly to be discussed much earlier and broader and deeper way before than they discussed the budget for this year. That at least was a surprise for the Minister of Finance. So then why now they are discussing? I found from the debate that the Minister of Finance was not very much welcoming the proposal by the Parliament, which, by the way, will have 126 seats from next election, next year. So it means it is to be included into the budget. Instead of 76 members, they will have 126 members. And they will need more accommodation, more spaces, more technology, more equipments, and for which the state Khora suggested 22 billion MNT, which I understand it was initially not much welcomed by the Minister of Finance, though he said that they are now putting all the money into the budget. So now we need to reconsider the very purpose of this VAT in Mongolia. Originally and initially, in France, for example, in 1950s, they started to implement the divide tax because they want to register. They were planning to register all businesses, which they did. In Mongolia, we start with 10%, and looks like this 10% is still very high for Mongolia. Why? Because 140,000 total companies, only 80,000 are paying this tax. And there are 250,000 individuals who run on small businesses. Out of them, only 1/5 or 50,000 are paying these taxes. In general, in Mongolia, in reality, when you buy from a smaller company, they would say that, oh, if we pay VAT, then this percent, if not this percent. So actually, the very idea of VAT tax in Mongolia have been doing certain jobs, but not completely. That's why my proposal is to have much better, instead of paying back 50% of the revenues on this tax, it's much better to have just 5% instead of 10%. Then it will increase substantially the taxation base of the country, and as a result, the government may collect more taxes as VAT as now. So whatever discussions will be there, it should be done at once. Instead of 10, it has to be 5. That's my proposal. And nobody should be exempted as now, because many people don't pay and many are exempted according to this or that policy of the government. So 10%, not 10%, 5%, nobody is exempted, everybody is paying. That's the solution, probably. That's my first topic. Our second topic of the review is about the law quality of drugs, medicines in Mongolia, pharmaceuticals, and their prices, high prices actually. So what's happening is there was big discussions again in the Mongolian community about complaining about the high prices of medicine, in particular for particular diseases like cardiovascular, heart, etc. And mostly the more common diseases have now more expensive pharmaceuticals for that. So how expensive and what is the quality? According to the independent audit, 16% of imported pharmaceuticals are under the quality line, and 20% of domestically produced medicines are also in the same category. 1/5 of Mongolian domestically produced medicals have lower quality than standard, than required, and 16% of import one. So it's also very serious statistics. And yet their prices, 40% of the medicines, by the methodology of international methodology, 40% of the goods, the medicines, are 10 to 15 times more expensive than the world practice or the internationally estimated standards. That's why Mongolians say that better to buy medicines in the developed countries. And they buy actually, but they are forbidden to bring more than one person's consumption, or very, very small amount. So this is the current situation of the pharmaceuticals in Mongolia. It is going on for quite some time already, 10 or so years. So what is being done? Mongolian parliament had done two committees. This Turkhoro, this committee is only for that issue, and which is this Horo, this committee is supposed to work only non-permanent committee, and that non-permanent committee is supposed to act to be valid only for 6 months. That's why we have to now second that non-permanent committee on this issue of drug price, and the reason of monitoring the reason of the drug prices and monitoring the conditions. So this non-permanent committee is now run by Dr. Chin Buring, who is a famous doctor in the country, and he is a parliament member now. He had suggested also several initiatives in this regard. The first non-permanent committee was run by the parliament member Uchera with 12 subcommittee members, non-permanent committee members. And they have been having only 4 times meetings, no visible results. And this time, this is second non-permanent committee is coming with 7 members. So far, 4 months elapsed, and only twice they had a meeting. First, they have elected the head of the non-permanent committee, who is become the same person as a Chimburen. And at the second meeting, they have nominated a particular individual who will be running for that monitor, who will going to inspect all the situations. But what's true is now they have only 2 months. Problem is the same. Nothing is changing. So that's the concern of the people. Mongolia, by the way, by the initiative of Dr. Chin Burin, who is also a parliament member, Mongolia had first time created medicine and medical equipment control and coordination agency 2 years ago. And it is supposed to have 132 staff members. Now it has 118, and they are renting some place to stay. And 4.5 billion MNT was spent for last year. And the situation is not much changing as we were expecting. So what is the way to solve the issues? There are many ways. We have been learning, experimenting many ways, but just one proposal. For example, in the Netherlands, there is a site or application where you can find what kind of pharmaceuticals sold where, locations of the pharmaceuticals and prices. So it gives 3 advantages. One, it always directs the companies to sell with the less price because people move to the cheaper places. Then second, they now the location. They no need to spend many time to find that particular medicine. The third is it will find the reserve of that particular medicine, how much it stays in the reserve, and when they will need to refill it. So this kind of advantages have been used in, for example, in Holland. So why not we do the same thing, for example? Because there are only 3 monopoly, according to parliament member Oyun Chimek, 3 monopoly suppliers in Mongolia. And that's one of the reasons why prices are high, she says. Another parliament member, Bei Sing, said that because these medicines have 3 times VAT at the customs, then at the supplier, the wholesaler, and then at the drugstore. So that's maybe one of the reasons of high prices of medicine in Mongolia. I would like to recall one project that Mongolian government had signed 6 years ago with the UK-based company called Pharma Trust. They were supposed to track particular medicine and the way from where it is produced, how and through which stage it goes, all the way to the customer, and what is the price margin at every level. But there is no information about the result of that project after 6 years. So we would like to see that project result. So these are my takes on the issue of lower quality. medicines and yet very high prices of those medicines. So we have covered today two topics. One is about VAT, very hot discussions going on at the parliament. Second, another hot issue discussed in the society is high prices in low quality medicines. Thank you very much for watching our program this time, and see you next week.